Here's a question that has tortured theologians for centuries. If God already knows who will go to heaven and who will go to hell, if everything is predetermined and destined, then why do heaven and hell even exist? Why the elaborate system of reward and punishment for choices that were never really choices? Ibn-Arabi discovered an answer so profound that it resolves this paradox while revealing the true purpose of existence itself. But first, let's make sure we understand the full weight of this paradox. If you're a believer in any religious tradition, you're probably familiar with the concept of divine judgment, that your actions in this life determine your fate in the next. Work toward good, avoid evil, and you'll be rewarded with eternal bliss. Choose selfishness over love, harm over healing, and you'll face eternal punishment. This system makes perfect sense if human beings have genuine free will, if our choices are real, if we could genuinely choose otherwise, if our destinies are truly in our own hands. But here's where it gets philosophically complex. Every religious tradition that speaks of heaven and hell also speaks of divine omniscience, God's perfect, complete knowledge of everything that was, is, and will be. If God knows everything that will happen, and God knows exactly who will choose good and who will choose evil, who will go to heaven and who will go to hell before anyone is even born. But if God knows this in advance, if it's all predetermined in divine knowledge, then how can the choices be real? And if the choices aren't real, how can the judgment be just? This is the paradox that has kept theologians awake at night for centuries. Either God doesn't really know the future, which limits divine omniscience, or human choices aren't really free, which undermines divine justice. Either God is not all-knowing, or God is not perfectly fair. The conventional theological solutions have never been fully satisfying. Some theologians have argued that God's knowledge doesn't determine our choices, that God simply sees what we will freely choose without causing those choices. But this still leaves us with the question, if God can see that someone will choose evil and end up in hell, why create that person at all? Why set up a system where some souls are destined for eternal suffering? Other theologians have suggested that hell is not eternal, or that it's not really punishment, but rather purification. But this seems to contradict the very concept of ultimate justice and final judgment that lies at the heart of most religious traditions. Ibn-Arabi approached this paradox from a completely different angle. Instead of trying to reconcile predestination with conventional notions of reward and punishment, he questioned the very assumptions underlying the paradox. What if heaven and hell are not places that souls go to based on their choices? What if they are expressions of what souls fundamentally are? According to Ibn Arabi's understanding, every soul is created as a unique expression of divine consciousness. Each soul has its own essential nature, its own particular way of reflecting divine attributes, its own specific role in the cosmic drama of divine self-exploration. Some souls are created to reflect divine mercy, others to reflect divine power, others to reflect divine beauty, others to reflect divine majesty. Heaven and hell, in this understanding, are not rewards and punishments for good or bad behavior. They are the natural expressions of different types of souls, the environments that perfectly match what these souls fundamentally are. A soul that reflects divine mercy naturally gravitates toward and creates experiences of bliss, love, and union. A soul that reflects divine wrath naturally gravitates toward and creates experiences of separation, torment, and judgment. But here's the crucial insight that resolves the paradox. Ibn Arabi taught that both types of souls are expressions of divine perfection. The soul that experiences hell is not a failed soul, a soul that made the wrong choices and ended up in the wrong place. It's a soul that is perfectly fulfilling its cosmic function, perfectly expressing its assigned divine attribute, perfectly playing its role in the infinite drama of divine self-manifestation. This might sound shocking, even blasphemous. How can hell be an expression of divine perfection? How can damnation serve the divine purpose? Ibn-Arabi's answer is that divine consciousness is so vast, so complete, so infinite that it must express itself through every possible mode of being. Divine mercy can only be fully known in relationship to divine justice. Divine forgiveness can only be fully appreciated in the context of divine judgment. Divine love can only be completely understood in contrast to divine wrath. The souls that experience hell are not accidents or failures in the divine plan. They are necessary participants in the complete revelation of divine nature. Without them, certain aspects of divine consciousness could never be fully expressed or appreciated. They are, in Ibn Arabi's language, the beloved of God's wrath, souls who reflect divine attributes that require the experience of separation and judgment to be fully manifested. But this raises another question. If some souls are essentially designed for hell, how is this just? How can it be fair to create souls whose nature leads them inevitably to suffering? Ibn Arabi's response is that our human understanding of justice is limited by our temporal, individual perspective. What appears unjust from the viewpoint of individual souls appears perfectly just from the viewpoint of the whole. Every soul gets exactly what matches its essential nature, exactly what it was created to experience, exactly what allows it to fulfill its cosmic purpose. Moreover, Ibn Arabi taught that even the souls that experience hell are not ultimately suffering in the way we imagine. From their perspective, within their own nature, they are expressing themselves authentically, fulfilling their purpose, experiencing what they were created to experience. The torment we imagine is largely a projection of our own nature onto theirs. A soul that embodies divine wrath experiences that wrath not as foreign punishment, but as the natural expression of its own essence. This is similar to how we might think of actors in a play. The actor who plays the villain is not suffering when he performs acts of villainy on stage. He is expressing his artistic nature, fulfilling his role, contributing to the beauty of the complete performance. The villain's role is not less important than the hero's role. It's simply different, and the drama would be incomplete without both. But Ibn Arabi went even deeper. He taught that the ultimate purpose of this cosmic drama, including both heaven and hell, both mercy and wrath, both union and separation, is divine self-knowledge. Divine consciousness is infinite and perfect, but it can only know itself fully through experiencing itself in every possible mode and relationship. Through the souls that experience heaven, divine consciousness knows itself as infinite mercy, perfect love, eternal bliss. Through the souls that experience hell, divine consciousness knows itself as absolute justice, perfect judgment, necessary boundaries. Both types of experience are necessary for complete divine self-knowledge. And here's where Ibn Arabi's teaching becomes truly profound. He suggests that at the ultimate level, beyond the drama of heaven and hell, all souls recognize their participation in this divine self-exploration. The soul that experienced separation comes to understand its role in allowing divine consciousness to appreciate union. The soul that experienced judgment comes to understand its role in allowing divine consciousness to appreciate mercy. This is what Ibn Arabi called the final reconciliation. Not a reconciliation that erases hell or makes everyone the same, but a recognition that every soul, regardless of its particular mode of experience, is a beloved expression of divine consciousness, fulfilling a necessary cosmic function. This understanding completely transforms how we think about moral choice and spiritual development. If heaven and hell are expressions of essential nature rather than consequences of behavior, why does it matter how we live? Why strive for goodness if our destination is already determined by our essential nature? Ibn Arabi's answer is that the striving itself is part of expressing our nature. A soul whose essence inclines toward divine mercy will naturally choose loving, compassionate actions, not to earn heaven, but because such actions are the natural expression of that soul's divine attribute. A soul whose essence reflects divine justice will naturally choose actions that uphold order and boundaries. Again, not to avoid hell, but because such choices express that soul's particular divine quality. The spiritual path, in this understanding, is not about changing your essential nature or earning your way into a different destination. It's about discovering your essential nature and learning to express it with increasing purity and authenticity. It's about recognizing your particular role in the cosmic drama and playing that role with full consciousness and complete surrender to the divine purpose. This doesn't eliminate moral responsibility, it transforms it. Instead of acting from fear of punishment or hope of reward, you act from love of your own divine nature and devotion to the cosmic role you are created to play. Instead of trying to become someone other than who you are, you strive to become more perfectly who you truly are. And what about those who seem to be expressing destructive or harmful divine attributes? Ibn-Arabi taught that even these souls have opportunities for purification and refinement within their own nature. A soul that embodies divine wrath can learn to express that wrath with perfect justice rather than blind rage. A soul that reflects divine power can learn to wield that power with wisdom rather than selfishness. The goal is not for every soul to become the same, but for every soul to become the most perfect possible expression of its unique divine attribute. Hell, in this understanding, is not eternal punishment for being the wrong type of soul. It's the natural environment for certain types of souls to achieve their own form of perfection. This teaching offers profound consolation for those who worry about the fate of loved ones who seem to be headed for judgment. It suggests that every soul is exactly where it needs to be for its own cosmic purpose, that every experience, even those that appear negative, serves the ultimate divine plan, that no soul is ever truly lost or abandoned. At the same time, it offers profound motivation for spiritual growth. If your actions flow from your essential divine nature, then developing that nature, purifying your expression of your divine attribute, becoming more conscious of your cosmic role, these become not just moral goods, but cosmic necessities. The paradox of predestination and divine judgment dissolves when we understand that judgment is not punishment imposed from outside, but recognition of what each soul essentially is. Heaven and hell are not destinations earned through behavior, but expressions of nature, fulfilled through authentic living. God's knowledge of who will go to heaven and hell is not the knowledge of a judge distributing rewards and punishments, but the knowledge of an artist who understands perfectly what each brushstroke contributes to the complete masterpiece. Every soul, regardless of its particular mode of experience, is a necessary and beloved part of the infinite painting of divine self-expression. In the end, Ibn-Arabi taught, even hell serves heaven's purpose, not by being transformed into heaven, but by being perfectly itself, expressing its own divine attribute with complete authenticity, contributing its own unique color to the infinite spectrum of divine self-manifestation. This is why heaven and hell matter. Even if everything is destined, they are not rewards and punishments, but the very means by which divine consciousness knows and expresses itself completely. They are not separate from the divine nature, but expressions of it. They are not failures in the cosmic plan, but essential elements of its perfect completion. The question that tortured theologians for centuries finds its resolution not in defending God's justice against charges of predetermination, but in recognizing that divine justice is so perfect, it includes every possible mode of being, so complete, it embraces even what appears to be its opposite, so infinite that it expresses itself through both mercy and wrath, both union and separation. both heaven and hell. And you, regardless of which mode of divine consciousness you embody, regardless of which cosmic role you were created to play, you are a perfect and necessary expression of the infinite divine nature exploring itself through the magnificent complexity of existence itself.